an FBI hostage negotiator named Chris. Say something almost sounds like too simple to be true. The person who listens the best in any room is the most powerful person in it. The loudest, not the one with most impressive vocabulary, the one who is actually listening. And here's the part that should bother you a little. Most people think they are good listeners, are good waiters. They are waiting for their turn to talk, but in the meantime, of tracking what's being said, a louder voice in their own head rehearsing what they want to say next. Once you see what it actually involves, start noticing almost every conversation you have today. Rarely anyone actually does it. 2. The hostage negotiation. To tell you about a hostage situation in 1993. It's one of the clearest demonstration of what listening can do actually. And had taken hostages in a bank. Negotiations were brought in to argue, not to overpower him, talking down using almost nothing, just listening techniques. The core moves used in negotiation like this is something called repeating the last few words someone just said. Paraphrasing, not interrupting, just listening. Said you're not living without money. Sounds almost too simple to matter, but it does something specific to the human brain. It signals unmistakably heard what you exactly said. Heard exactly what you said. People who feel heard slightly tend to keep talking. They elaborate. They reveal more of what's actually going on underneath the surface demand. High stakes negotiation, that elaboration is gold. It's where the actual information lives. Real fear or the real need under the stated position. What is that? This isn't some specialized hostage negotiation trick that doesn't apply to normal life. It's a demonstration, the most extreme stakes imaginable. Something true in every single conversation you have. People reveal more when they feel they are heard and they are directly interrogated. Part 3. 2 types of empathy. This distinction that will change you listen for the rest of your life. There are 2 kinds of empathy. Most people only practice one of them. Active empathy is feeling someone else feels. Real sadness lands in your chest too. It's real but it's exhausting. It doesn't actually require any skill, just sensitivity. Active empathy is different. It's understanding what someone is feeling and thinking accurately, not necessarily feeling it yourself. And here's the key thing. Active empathy is trainable. It's a skill you build, not a trait you are born with or without. It's also in almost every practical conversation, work, in friendships, a conflict, more useful one. Because understanding someone clearly enough to respond well to them requires observing their emotional state. Requires actually tracking what they are saying. People think they are empathetic because they feel bad when someone else is feeling bad. That's effective empathy and it's nice. It's not a skill that makes you a great listener. Skill is cognitive and you can build starting today. I'll tell you about David and Renita. He introduced you to a manager named David. Because his story is the clearest example I know of someone discovering the gap between hearing and listening. David ran a small design team. He genuinely believed he was a supportive manager. He held one-on-ones every week, asked how people were doing. One of his best designers, a woman named Renita, with almost no warning, and in her exit conversation, said something that struck David for years. I never felt you actually heard me. Always had an answer before I finished. He was stunned because in his mind had been listening to the whole time, but he had not realized that he had been doing something incredible and almost invisible. His response while he was still mid-sentence wasn't tracking her words, was tracking his own upcoming reply. Not listening, rehearsing, distinguished as listening. The person on the other end can usually feel the difference, but when they can't, it is the actual psychology of most failed conversations. Failed conversations run on turn-taking. It's something researchers call repair. All mid-conversation corrections make when listeners look confused or dark. Listeners are bad specifically because are managing their next turn instead of tracking the current one. It wasn't a bad person. It was doing what almost everyone does by default. He didn't know there was a better way. The noticing part of this video, 3 mechanics of real listening. Let's get specific about real listening actually looks like practice. Just listen better. It's useless without mechanic. The first mechanic is reflective mechanic. Paraphrasing what someone said in your own words. Their exact words confirm you actually understood the meaning, not just the sounds. There's a difference between sounds like you are frustrated. You feel like your effort is being noticed. Confirms your heard noise. Other confirms the heard meaning. The third is mirroring. Repeating the last few words someone said, most verbatim, feels almost too simple. It's one of the most reliably effective tools across negotiation research, precisely because it requires other person to elaborate. Elaboration is where the real information lives. The second is validation. This one trips people up constantly because they confuse it with agreement. Validation means acknowledging someone's emotional reaction makes sense given their perspective. Does not mean you agree with their conclusion, their decision. Say, I get why you are furious about this. Stop saying, are right to quit your job over it. The feeling and endorsing decision are two completely separate movies. And conflating them is why people avoiding validating others at all are worried it means signing off something they don't actually agree with. One of the important part. 7. Never ask why again. Give you the actual techniques that interrogators and negotiators use. It will change how you ask questions. Completely ordinary conversation called calibrate question. The rule is simple ended. It starts with how or what, never why. It sounds like an accusation even you don't mean like that. Why did you do that? Someone instantly on the defensive mode. Even if your tone is gentle. What made that feel like the right call at that time? In curiosity, completely different emotional effect opens doors instead of triggering defense. That with leveling, the emotion up loud, it sounds like this has been really frustrating. Not a diagnosis, just an offer. Will almost either confirm it or correct it. And either way, have just shown them you are actually paying attention to more than their literal words. By replacing every why question had normally asked today what or how. What changes in how people respond to you. Here's the next part, why backfires and how labeling works. Worth sitting with why questions fires so reliably because the mechanism is almost universal. How do you do that? Most people's nervous system, like a courtroom question, implies you have already concluded something was wrong. And asked it with genuine curiosity. Word itself carries that residue. And how questions don't carry the same baggage. What led you to do that decision and how did you do that? Be asking for the exact same information. One invites a story and other invites a defense. Is a small linguistic substitution and outsized effect. It's one of the easiest specific changes you can make starting in your very next conversation. It deserves its own moment of attention because it's frequently misused. A skill isn't annoying someone's emotion with confidence. Are obviously angry about this. It can feel confrontational. The skill is offering it tentatively, almost as a question discussed as a statement. Sounds like this has been frustrating. Small linguistic softness. Sounds like I'm sensing. Room for the other person correct you without feeling cornered. And most people, when given that room, either confirm what you guessed or turn it into something more accurate. Either way, you have just demonstrated that you are tracking more than their little words. Is exactly a signal that makes someone feel genuinely understood instead of merely heard. That's the correcting part of David. 9. David's resolution. Also a deeper layer worth understanding is rapport. The felt sense of mutual connection that feels builds on completely below conscious awareness. Synchrony, pacing, tone, kind of unconscious mirroring of body language and energy between two people who are actually connecting. You have felt this before. Conversation that flows, you leave feeling unusually understood if nothing dramatic was said. That's rapport doing its quiet work. And it's not magic, it's built partially to the exact listening behaviors we are talking about. Because when someone feels genuinely heard, their nervous system relaxes slightly. That relaxation is contagious. A conversation. Unheard people create dense conversation. Heard people create open ones. Let's go back to David for a second, because what he did next is the part of the story that matters. After Renita's exit interview, he not over his entire management style overnight. That's not how change like this works. And we covered why in day 1. You can check it out in the video, link in the comment. One reps repeated dramatic transformation. What he did was deceptively simple. His next one-on-one made a private rule for himself. Click until you have traced back what they just said, your own words, and they have confirmed you got it right. Just that one rule. First few times felt awkward and slow. Within a few weeks, things shifted. People started talking longer in one-on-one. Unprompted, a team member brought up a problem he had apparently been sitting on once. Because in her words, was finally felt like there was a rule for it. It had not gotten smarter. He had gotten quite strong previous. Because in her words, a specific structured way that quite had made is for information that had there the whole time, never surfacing. This is the most simple and important part. Part 10. Why boring conversation matters. Something that should reframe how you think about every boring conversation have ever zoned out in. Conversation research treats listening as information gathering tool, a courtesy, usually then what they had under direct pointed question. This means every time you half listen, because a conversation seems unimportant, not just being a little rude, are actively losing information that otherwise have access to. People who seem to know things of others always seem to understand what's really going on underneath the surface. Most of them aren't the mind readers, they're just listening consistently. Conversation everyone else treat as filler. The next part 11, Daniel and me. We give you one more story. This shows what happens when listening fails. Completely different setting, workspace but a marriage. Couple called Daniel and May been together since 11 years. By their own description, they didn't fight much. No screaming matches, no slammed blows. Somewhere in year 9, he started feeling a particular kind of loneliness. That's hard to explain to someone who has not felt it. Loneliness of being constantly spoken to, rarely actually heard. Daniel would ask about her day, had respond, wasn't unkind. Almost every pattern followed the same pattern. Had described something stressful at her work. Within 10 seconds, he had pivot to advise to a similar story of his work, to a solution she hadn't asked for. For 9 years, he stopped doing her hard things because Daniel folded it, but some quiet part of her had learned that talking to him about real problems didn't feel like relief. Immediately start managing. For therapy, the therapist asked Daniel try something that felt to him most instantly simple. The next 2 weeks, every time he brought up something difficult, one question with zero advice, so fixing zero stories of his own. Sounds like it really weighed on him today. That was the hardest part of it. No more. Daniel described the first few attempts as feeling uncomfortable. He said it felt like sitting on his own hands. Within that same 2 weeks, he told the therapist something that genuinely surprised her. He felt closer to him than she had in these past 9 years. And nothing about their actual circumstances had changed. The only visible that mood was, the only job was to reflect it back, and she felt cared before, tried to help. This is called Rogers finding playing out a living room instead of therapy office. Being heard completely and without an agenda, and a warm-up act before a real connection. A lot of relationships quietly running dry is the connection. Its absence is the actual thing. People are grieving them. They say a relationship lost its spark. This is the last part of this video, part 12. What you want to do, the exercise. To close this out with something practical. Use it in literally next conversation today. That's the entire point of this series. Just understanding the psychology, actually doing something different today. One conversation today, no matter how small. Co-worker complaining about their commute. Partner telling you about their story. Friend texting you something that happened. And run this exact sequence. Then finish completely before you start formulating response. In the last few words, if it feels standard, phrasing the meaning back, not just the words, form or correctly. There is an emotion underneath what they are saying. Label it like that was stressful and let them agree or clarify. Resist specifically urge to immediately offer a solution, fix or related to it. Listen all the way through. They call progress describe, not as a warm-up act to the real help, but as the actual movement that the movement needed. You feel almost certainly noticeable shift how that conversation goes because you said anything particularly clever. But once were actually there for it. Tomorrow we are going to speak on something. Most people's instincts of how to sound confident, specific words and phrases, underwarming. Every time you speak exactly what to replace with them. Today changed you how you think about listening. Day 3 is going to change you how you think about every sentence you